Welcome to The Explainer, everyone. Today, we're diving into the absolute foundation of language testing and assessment. We are pulling this straight from Chapter 1 of Ayak Pahiti's text, Language Testing and Assessment from Theory to Practice. I'm your resident language assessment expert, and honestly, I'm so thrilled to have two amazing co-hosts here to help unpack the whole shebang.
Hey everyone, I'm the postgraduate student. My day-to-day is basically swimming in applied linguistics research and all the theoretical frameworks of how we actually learn and measure language.
And I'm the early career teacher. I'm the one looking at how all these big, lofty theories actually play out in a messy, real-world classroom full of students. It really is the perfect trio. Let's break these complex ideas down and actually make them useful for you. So, listen, I want to start us off with a super practical question. It's something I literally face in the classroom every single day. Is a test the exact same thing as an assessment? We throw these words around interchangeably all the time, right? Like, I'm giving a vocab test, or I'm assessing your reading. But does that difference actually matter for my students?
Oh, it absolutely matters. It fundamentally changes how students feel, how we grade, and what we actually do with the information we're gathering.
Exactly. And to figure out exactly why it matters, let's look at our roadmap for today so we can clear up that confusion.
Okay, quick look at our agenda. First, we'll define testing versus assessment. Second, we'll look at the actual purposes of assessment. Third, we'll cover literacy and quality standards. Fourth is classroom and student assessment. Fifth, technology and emerging trends. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with our essential key takeaways.
All right, let's jump right into Section 1, Testing versus Assessment.
So language testing is actually very specific. We're talking about standardized, formal procedures. The entire goal is to objectively collect evidence of someone's ability. Think of the heavy hitters, the IELTS or the TOEFL exams. Literally everyone takes the same test under the exact same time limits, and it's scored the exact same way.
Right, so that's the super stressful, sitting in rows with a pencil kind of evaluation. But language assessment, that's a much broader umbrella.
You hit the nail on the head. Assessment includes those formal tests for sure, but it also includes all the informal, non-standardized checks. When a teacher walks around the room just listening to a group chat or asks a quick question to gauge understanding, that is an assessment. It's usually socioculturally situated, which is just a fancy way of saying it takes the actual messy classroom context into account.
Now, before we go any further, we really need to clarify a massive terminology shift in the field. We're moving toward the use of additional language, or AL. Historically, we've used terms like L2 for second language, or ESL and EFL.
So why the shift to AL?
Well, because in the 21st century, labels like L2 or ESL are just incredibly limiting. People are often acquiring multiple languages at the exact same time, or they're learning a third or fourth language. So additional language is this great context-neutral, inclusive term. It recognizes that language users are beautifully diverse and multilingual, instead of just forcing everyone into a binary native versus non-native box.
Makes total sense. Okay, let's pivot to Section 2, the purposes of assessment. So why do we actually put students through all this? Language testing and assessment generally serve two broad categories: accountability and selection.
Okay, so accountability feels like it's about holding both the students and the institutions responsible. Like this is your achievement testing, your grading, certification, and reporting back to educational boards or parents. It's basically proving that, hey, learning actually happened here.
Exactly. Conversely, selection is about making decisions for or about individuals.
Right, so we're talking about admitting a student into a university program, placing them in the correct course level, or maybe screening them to diagnose specific learning needs so they get the right support. It's way less about looking back at what they learned and entirely about deciding their next step.
And it's wild to think about how the way we achieve those purposes has changed over time. Back in the early 20th century, we used these super rigid structuralist approaches. It was literally just testing grammar and vocabulary in total isolation.
Oh, like those multiple choice tests where you just pick the right verb tense, but you couldn't actually order a cup of coffee in real life.
Exactly. Thankfully, by the late 20th century, the whole field shifted toward communicative language ability. We started testing actual real-world tasks. And now, sitting here in the 21st century, we're looking at dynamic, socio-cognitive models. We're fully embracing multilingualism and translanguaging, meaning we recognize that learners use all of their linguistic resources to communicate, not just some strict textbook version of one single language.
Moving right along to Section 3, Literacy and quality standards. Post-grad, there's a great quote by Fulcher that defines language assessment literacy, or LAL, as the knowledge, skills, and abilities required to design and evaluate tests, specifically noting that this includes ethics and codes of practice.
And this is absolutely crucial. LAL isn't just about knowing how to crunch the statistics or write a tricky multiple-choice question. It involves deep ethical, historical, and political awareness. You literally have to understand why you're testing and the social impact that specific test is going to have on a real person's life.
You know, the 7 hallmarks of good assessment are basically a teacher's best friend. Let me break a couple of these down from my side of the desk.
Go for it.
Well, reliability is all about consistency, right? Like, does the test score accurately every single time? But for me, practicality and fairness are the real game changers. I could design this incredibly authentic, perfectly valid speaking test, but if it takes me 3 weeks to grade it, it's just not practical. And fairness means making absolutely sure no specific group of students is disadvantaged just by the way the test is designed.
Right, and don't forget impact, which we often call washback. If a test relies entirely on memorization, the washback is that teachers are only going to teach memorization. The test literally changes how we teach.
Balancing all 7 of these hallmarks, that is the absolute art of good assessment.
Okay, let's get into the day-to-day stuff. Section 4, Classroom and Student Assessment.
All right, let's completely demystify 2 of the biggest, most confusing buzzwords in education: formative versus summative assessment.
Oh, yes. So formative assessment is assessment for learning. It's embedded directly into my teaching. If I give a quick ungraded quiz, or honestly just ask my students to give me a thumbs up or down if they're following along, I'm diagnosing where they are so I can give them immediate feedback.
Spot on. It's fluid. Summative assessment, on the other hand, is assessment of learning. Think of your final exam or that massive end-of-term essay. It's outcome-focused and evaluates their final achievement at the end of a unit. You absolutely need both, but they serve entirely different masters.
And there's this brilliant progression of student-led assessment practices that really empower learners. It's kind of like a ladder. It starts with step 1, self-assessment, where students simply reflect on their own skills.
Then step 2, self-testing, where they might actually quiz themselves.
Right, and then they bring in their classmates. Step 3 is peer assessment, so evaluating a partner's work based on a rubric, which naturally leads to step 4, giving actual peer feedback.
Exactly. And this whole sequence culminates in step 5, assessment as learning, or AAL. This is the gold standard. It's where the act of being assessed is literally a learning event in itself. The student is actively monitoring, evaluating, and modifying their own language development in real time.
Which brings us to the really tricky stuff. Section 5, Technology and Emerging Trends. Okay, so there is one massive question keeping educators awake at night right now. What happens to assessment when students have ChatGPT, Grammarly, and all these remote learning tools right at their fingertips? Traditional testing models just feel so incredibly vulnerable at the moment.
It's true. Several contemporary trends are totally reshaping the landscape. First off, we've got online and remote assessment proctoring. During the boom of remote learning, we saw the rapid rise of software designed to monitor students taking tests in their own homes, which, as you can imagine, brings up huge privacy and practicality concerns.
And then there's AI tools and automated scoring. Big test companies are increasingly using AI to score writing and speaking tasks. It's incredibly efficient, sure, but it sometimes completely misses the nuanced understanding of authentic social language use.
And of course, the elephant in the room, the implications of generative AI for academic integrity. When a machine can instantly write a perfectly coherent essay, we can't just test the final written product anymore. We have to figure out how to assess the actual process of learning.
And finally, technology is really highlighting that shift to multilingualism and translanguaging we talked about earlier. It's becoming obvious that strict monolingual assessments just do not reflect the reality of our globally connected digital world.
All right, let's pull it all together. Section 6, Essential Key Takeaways.
Okay, here are the absolute core takeaways you need to remember. Number 1, assessment is a massive umbrella. It's so much broader than just standardized testing. Number 2, we use these assessments for multiple reasons, serving both institutional accountability and individual selection.
Number 3, to do any of this well, educators and policymakers have to have language assessment literacy. You must understand the ethics, the real-world impact, and those 7 quality standards to ensure your tests are actually fair and valid.
And lastly, technology, generative AI, and our modern multilingual realities are completely reshaping what it means to test language from the ground up.
And that leaves us with a massive, somewhat provocative thought to end on today. How will our multilingual realities and the rise of AI continue to reshape what it actually means to be proficient? I mean, if an AI can perfectly translate or generate language for us, what exactly are we measuring when we test human proficiency? It completely changes the game.
It really does. It forces us to take a hard look at what it actually means to communicate authentically as a human being.
Well, thank you all for joining us on this explainer. Keep asking those big questions, keep examining your own practices, and we will see you next time.